podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
The Two-Footed Podcast is brought to you by EPLindex.com and our presenting sponsor, Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider. A virtual privacy network allows you to go online, change your location, access things you're geo-blocked from, while keeping your data safe. So, as an example, if you are a UK expat and want access to BBC iPlayer to watch Match of the Day, or ITV Hub, or all four, but you get that message that says this content is not available in your location, a Liberty Shield VPN gets you around that block, allows you to watch whatever you want on those services, while also keeping your data safe. And it goes further than that. It allows you to open up Netflix's entire library by just changing your IP address. Liberty Shield is the #1 rated VPN provider on Trustpilot with 5-star ratings across the board. So go to libertyshield.com right now, use the code EPL25 and get either the hardware package or the software package. The hardware package is a router that you plug into your existing router, and any item you want to change the IP address on, be it your phone or your television, you connect that to the new Liberty Shield router. All other items can remain connected to your existing router. There's also a software package which is instantly downloadable to your device and you can get using straight away. Again, libertyshield.com, EPL25 for 25% off at checkout. We're also brought to you by Home of Hopcroft, a giftware and homeware company located in Scotland but shipping worldwide. Check out homeofhopcroft.co.uk and do check out the EPL Index and Anfield Index shops, which you'll find on Etsy. Use the codes EPL10 or RED10 for 10% off at checkout. And lastly, do remember to check out A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. That podcast is on this feed before every Premier League match week. And then the EPL Roundtable, hosted by Kevin DeVries, on its own EPL Roundtable feed. So just search EPL Roundtable in your podcast device. And that's out after every match week. Now, on with the show. What's good, boys and girls? Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Friday. It is the 14th of June. I hope you're all well and looking forward to your weekends. Now, you may have noticed an additional podcast has popped up on this feed today. That is the daily Euro 2024 podcast that myself and Carol Matchett will be doing. We did them for the last World Cup. We did them for the last European Championships. And we are going to do them for this European Championships. Now, some days it will be myself and Guy. Some days it will be Carol and Guy. Most days it will be myself and Carol. So those should be good. Those will all be kind of 20, 25 minutes. Hopefully no longer than 30. That's the aim. We stuck to it quite well for both of the last two tournaments, and we're going to aim to do so again. I did mention yesterday that there will be changes to the format of this podcast starting not next week, it'll be the week after that, where we release it as two 30-35 minute part and a 20-25 minute part. So week after next, that's what will happen there. What else do we have? Today, we were going to talk about Fulham because they're next on our list of Premier League teams as we sort of review the season they've had and do a bit of a squad assessment in terms of what they might need to move into next season. But you know what? With the day that's in it, with it being European Championships, we'll do a bit of nostalgia instead. We will look at Euro 2000 and how that played out. Now, everybody's aware of my fondness for a 16-team European Championships, and this was exactly that. This competition was held in Belgium and the Netherlands, and there really were some interesting stadiums used at this competition. Smaller grounds, which was really nice. We had, of the 8 stadiums used, 5 of them were in and around the 30,000 mark. So you had Bruges, Liège, Charleroi, Eindhoven, which is 33,000, and Arnhem, all in the 30,000 mark. And then you had the Kuip in Rotterdam, you had the Amsterdam Arena and then you had the National Stadium in Brussels, all kind of in that 50 to 52,000 range. And you know what? There was never any complaints that there wasn't enough tickets. There was never any complaints that the stadiums weren't big enough. This was seen as a very successful competition, one that the fans that went enjoyed, one that the teams were quite happy with the facilities that they were giving, including the training camps that they all had. And everybody seemed to be in pretty good fettle throughout the competition. So, at the competition, in terms of squads, we'll go groups A through D. England, managed by Kevin Keegan. That was a very strong English squad. You had Seaman, you had both Nevilles, Sol Campbell, Tony Adams, Martin Keown, Gareth Southgate, Gareth Barry. Your other goalkeepers in that squad were Nigel Martin and Richard Wright. In terms of midfielders then, Beckham, Scholes, McManaman, Ince, Gerrard, very, very young, only had the one cap to his name. Barry only had 2 caps to his name at this point. Dennis Wise, somehow included in the squad. Nick Barmby, Alan Shearer, Michael Owen, Emile Heskey, Kevin Phillips and Robbie Fowler were the strikers. Also in Group A was Germany. Now, this was a really strong group, and this is why I like the smaller competitions, because I think the groups are just really strong. Also in Group A with England, you had Germany, Oliver Kahn, Marcus Babbel, Mehmet Scholl, Thomas Hassler, Lothar Matthäus. You had Jens Lehmann, you had Michael Ballack, Didi Hamann, Jens Jeremys, Christian Ziege, Sebastian Deisler, Oliver Bierhoff, the hero of 96. The Germans obviously were returning to the Euros as the holders, having won it in 1996. And quite a bit of this squad would go on to get to the final of the World Cup in 2002. Also in this group, Portugal. Vitor Bahia was the captain, the legendary Porto goalkeeper. George Costa was in the squad. Fernando Couto, Paulo Sousa, Luis Figo in his prime, João Pinto in his prime, Rui Costa in his prime. You had Sergio Conceição, Abel Xavier. Everton and Liverpool fans will remember him. You had Nuno Gomes, who obviously went on to play for the national team for quite a long time. And rounding out the numbers, you had a very strong Romania with players like Dan Petrescu, Adrian Mutu, that's obviously prior to his moves to England. Georgi Hagi was still in the squad at 35. You had Adrian Illy. Christian Kivu was a young up-and-coming left-back at Ajax at that point. Just a very, very good squad. And that's a very, very good group. Obviously, Romania would have been seen as the weakest of the four, but there was no pushover in that group. In Group B, you have Belgium, one of the hosts. In their squad, you had Philippe Clement, who's now the manager of Glasgow Rangers. Mark Wilmots was in that squad, who would go on to manage the Belgian national team. He's currently the sporting director at Schalke. Emil Mpenza, who was a really exciting young forward at that point, playing for Schalke, had already been capped 23 times going into the competition at the age of 21. His brother was Mbo Mpenza. Who else do we have in this squad? Luke Nilles, really, really good player, long time at PSV, moved to Aston Villa, scored a worldie, and then shattered his leg and ended his career. 3 games he managed. Very, very underrated player. It's a shame he waited so long to move to a top league. He was with Anderlecht for 8 years and then PSV for 6, and that sort of ate up his career, but still a very, very good player. Gilles de Bilde and Mbo Mpenza also in the squad. The Italians were in Group B. Christian Abbiati, Ciro Ferrara, Paolo Maldini, Demetrio Albertini, Fabio Cannavaro, Paolo Negro, Antonio Conte, Pippo Inzaghi, Alessandro Del Piero, Francesco Toldo, Alessandro Nesta, Luigi Di Baggio, Gianluca Zambrotta, Stefano Fiore, Vincenzo Montella, Francesco Totti, and Marco Del Vecchio, among others. No Gigi Buffon broke his hand in the warm-up just prior to the competition and ended up missing out. Christian Vieri also missed out through injury, and Dino Baggio and Diego Fuser did not quite make the cut. Sweden up next, you've got Roland Nielsen, played in England a few times. Patrick Anderson, best known for his time at Bayern Munich. Joachim Björklund, another quality defender. Got Hakan Mild in this squad. Freddie Lundberg of Arsenal in this squad. You have Olaf Melberg, who a lot of people will remember from his time at Aston Villa. Daniel Anderson was a good player. Johan Mjalby was a good player for Celtic for a long time. Henrik Larsson was obviously the star turn in the squad, but Kenneth Anderson had been around a long, long time and was a fitting partner for him in attack for a number of years. And then we had Turkey, Rustu Rekbar, who in 2002 at the World Cup was arguably the second best goalkeeper around behind Oliver Kahn. At this point wasn't as well known. Who else do we have in this squad? You've got the great Hakan Şükür, whose life has unfortunately been turned upside down because of his opposition to the president of Turkey. I think he's president. I think he's prime minister. I think he's president, and the policies of his government. Sergen Yalçın was in the squad. Tayfun Korkut was in the squad. He was a very good player as well. Muzzy Izzet of Leicester City was an uncapped call-up, really good player. In Group C, we had the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. Now, we now call that nation Serbia. Dejan Stankovic, Vladimir Jukovic, Predrag Mijatovic, Savo Milosevic, Dragan Stojkovic, Sinisa Mihailovic. I mean, there's just so many great names in this squad. Darko Kovacevic is there. Flopped quite horribly at Sheffield United. Went to, I want to say, Real Sociedad. Yeah, Real Sociedad, and did brilliantly. Went to Juve, wasn't quite as good. Struggled at Lazio. Went back to Sociedad and was just brilliant again. Just couldn't settle it in England, and then Juve is always going to be tough. Also in Group C, we have Norway, Henning Berg, then of Manchester United, Ståle Solbakken, who's obviously gone on to have good fortune as a manager. He's current manager of the Norwegian national team. Tore Andre Flo, who at that point was playing for Chelsea. Vigard Hegem was playing for Liverpool. Stefan Iversen was playing for Tottenham. You've got John Carew and Dan Egan, Stigen Gebjornaby, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Slovenia, I believe this was their first appearance at an international tournament after the breakup of the old Yugoslavia. The most notable name in that squad is Zlatko Zahovic, obviously. Tremendous player. Just a really enjoyable player to watch. Spain rounded out the group. So Santiago Canizares, you had Pep Guardiola, Fernando Hierro, Ivan Helguera, Raul, Alfonso Perez, really good player. A young Iker Casillas, Gerard, Vicente, Gaisca Mendieta's in the squad. Not a vintage squad, and of course, my favourite player in this squad is Juan Carlos Valerón, who at this point was at Atletico Madrid. This is just prior to his move to Deportivo La Coruña, where he obviously made his real impression on the world. It's a shame for Atleti that they got relegated and were forced to sell him, because he obviously went on to become a genuinely fantastic player. But there was something about him and Depor that I loved, and I loved that he went back and finished his career with Las Palmas. What a wonderful player. In Group D, now the Czechs had been the surprise package of 96, and they returned much of the same team. You've got Pavel Cernicek, who was a long-time goalkeeper for Newcastle. By this point had moved on to Sheffield Wednesday. You've got Thomas Repka, Pavel Nedved, Yuri Nemec, Karol Poborski, Jan Koller. Thomas Rosicky was 19 years of age. Every club in Europe wanted him. Little Mozart, he ended up going to Dortmund and then obviously to Arsenal. His career was plagued by injuries. Still to this day, one of my favourite players. Vladimir Schweitzer, Yuri Novotny, Patrick Berger. It's a really good squad. Really, really good squad. You've got the Danes, who'd obviously won the competition in 92. Peter Schmeichel is still there. Jan Heinze is in the squad. Thomas Helveg, who was at Milan. Alan Nielsen, who was at Spurs. Jesper Grønkjær, who I think is quite underrated historically. I think he was quite a good player. Jondal Thomason is in the squad at Feyenoord at this point. This was before, obviously, he moved to Newcastle. That came a couple of years later. It's a shame that it didn't work out at Newcastle because I always thought he was a very good footballer. Actually, I'm wrong. This was after he'd been at Newcastle. So he'd been to Newcastle at 21 and left a year later, gone to Feyenoord, rebuilt his career, goes to AC Milan, and ended up having a good career. Didn't become the next Laudrup as he was expected to, but still a good player, and has recently been named manager of the Swedish national team, which is something I was unaware of until now. He was appointed in February, having obviously left Blackburn that month as well. So maybe he knew that job was coming up and maybe he pushed to leave, but things had gone wrong there. Ebbe Sand is in this Denmark squad. Stig Tofting, Thomas Gravesen. Honestly, I think his name it's Paul Ferry, isn't it? Isn't it Paul Ferry that held Paul Ferris? No, that's not him. Simon Ferry. So Simon Ferry is a former player who came through the academy at Celtic, played for Swindon, played for a couple of other clubs, and now podcasts himself and does kind of, the circuit of podcasts, telling stories about his playing days. Now, Simon Ferry is a very good storyteller. Go and Google or put into YouTube, rather, Simon Ferry, Thomas Gravesen, because the stories he has about Gravesen are just hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. And then do Simon Ferry, Paolo Di Canio, because they're brilliant as well, but that's not the point of this. The Gravesen stuff, that guy was an absolute headbanger. France were in this group. Now, France obviously had won the World Cup in 1998, so they were heavy favourites coming in. You have Vincent Candela, Bixante Lizarazu, Patrick Vieira, Laurent Blanc, Yuri Georgiev, Didier Deschamps, Marcel Desailly, Nicolas Anelka, Zinedine Zidane, Robert Pires, Thierry Henry, Lilian Thuram, Fabien Barthez, Emmanuel Petit, Frank Leboeuf, Christian Karambou, David Trezeguet. That's such a strong squad. That is absolutely incredible how good they were. So many top players in that squad. Rounding out the group then was the Netherlands, the other host, Edwin van der Sar, Michael Reitziger, Jaap Stam, Frank de Boer, Darren Seedorf, Edgar Davids, Patrick Kluivert, Dennis Bergkamp, Mark Overmars, Gio van Bronckhorst, Ronald de Boer, Pierre van Hooijdonk, Ed de Hoy, who was in England for quite a while. Arthur Newman was a good player. Aaron Winter was a really good player. Roy Mackay, great goal scorer. And Sander Westveld was a third choice goalkeeper. He was at Liverpool at that point, and the season after this would win the treble with Liverpool, the cup treble, obviously. So lots of great players. Just a competition full of good teams. There's nobody that you're looking at really and thinking, oh, they're a pushover, they're easy. Like, there's just nobody that you'd be looking at and thinking, easy work. Starting in Group A, like I say, Germany, England, Portugal, and Romania. First game, Germany won, Romania won. Then we get England losing 3-2 to Portugal, having gone 2-0 up within 20 minutes. Portugal would then beat Romania. England beat Germany 1-0. Alan Shearer got the only goal of the game. Then Romania beat England 3-2. England were 1-0 down, went 2-1 up, conceded an equaliser just after half-time, and then in the dying embers of the game, Phil Neville gives away the penalty and Romania score. In the other game, Portugal beat Germany 3-0. So Portugal topped the group. Romania finished second, 9 points and 4 points. And because England lost that game, they go out. England finished third, Germany fourth. Massive shock, obviously, with the Germans having won it in 96. And then what they would do, now obviously we didn't know at that point, but with what they did in 2002, it's just very surprising how much they underperformed in this competition. But they were still a little bit too reliant on the likes of Lothar Matthäus, who was well past his best, and Thomas Hassler, who likewise was well past his best, but what a player he was. In Group B, as I said, Belgium, Sweden, Turkey, and Italy. Belgium beat Sweden 2-1. Italy beat Turkey 2-1. Antonio Conte were the goals in that one. Then Italy beat Belgium 2-0. Totti and Stefano Fiore with the goals. And then Sweden and Turkey played in a 0-0 draw. And in the last round of games, Turkey beat Belgium 2-0. Italy beat Sweden 2-1. Late goal from Alessandro Del Piero to give them the win there. And that meant that Italy topped the group with 9 points. Turkey through in second place with 4 points. Belgium, the hosts, eliminated on 3 points. And Sweden out with 1 point. Group C, Spain, Norway, Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, and Slovenia. Norway beat Spain 1-0. Stefan Iversen with the only goal of the game. Yugoslavia and Slovenia, in a game that there was quite a lot of tension around, played out a 3-3 draw. Slovenia were 3-0 up in that game. Zahovic scored, Pavlin scored, Zahovic scored again. Then Milosevic got one back. Drulovic scored 3 minutes later. And 3 minutes after that, Milosevic scores again. So from 3-0 up, or 3-0 down in Yugoslavia's case, to 3-3 in 6 minutes. But a very exciting game, obviously. Then Slovenia lost 2-1 to Spain. Zahovic scoring again. Raul getting one of the Spanish goals. Yugoslavia beat Norway 1-0. Milosevic scored again. And then in what was probably one of the games of the tournament, and certainly one of the most dramatic endings to a game you'll ever see, Yugoslavia 3, Spain 4. Spain go 1-0 down. Milosevic scores again. Then Alfonso scores to make it 1-1 8 minutes later. Yugoslavia score on 50. Spain score on 51. 2-2. Yugoslavia score on 75. 3-2 to them. And we're into stoppage time. It's the 94th minute and Mendieta steps up and scores a penalty. You think, okay, Yugoslavia are going to be disappointed, but at least they got a point. At least they're not leaving empty-handed. And then in the 95th minute, Alfonso Perez scores the winner. And Spain win the game. In the other game in the group of the last round, Slovenia 0, Norway 0. So, Spain through on 6 points. Yugoslavia will be very, very thankful, or were very, very thankful, I should say, that Norway didn't beat Slovenia, because they had 4 points and went through, while Norway had 4 points and went out. Slovenia finished, obviously, on 2 points from their 2 draws. Group D, Netherlands, Czech Republic, France, Denmark. These are all such strong groups. France 3, Netherlands 0, Blanc, Henry and Wiltord. Netherlands 1, Czech Republic 0, Frank de Boer with an 89th minute penalty. Czech Republic 1, France 2, Henry scores, Poborski equalises, Djorkaeff gets the winner. The Netherlands beat Denmark 3-0, Kluivert, de Boer, Ronald de Boer and Zenden with the goals. Then the Czech Republic beat the Danes 2-0, Vladi Šmica gets both goals. And the Netherlands beat France 3-2 in a bit of an upset. Even though they were hosts, France were really strong favourites. Dugarry scored, then Kluivert equalised, Trezeguet scored, Frank de Boer equalised, and then Bolo Zenden scored the winner. So we end up with the Netherlands on 9 points, France on 6, Czech Republic on 3, and the Danes, as it turned out, the worst team in the tournament, no points and a -8 goal difference. That puts us into the knockout stage. In the round of 8, which is the quarterfinals, obviously, Spain, France, Turkey, Portugal, Italy, Romania, and the Netherlands against Yugoslavia. So Portugal, Turkey was up first. Nuno Gomes scored both goals to win the game for Portugal, and through they go 2-0. Italy matched that scoreline, 2-0 win over Romania, Francesco Totti and Pippo Inzaghi with the goals. Then the Netherlands decided to smack the shit out of Yugoslavia and beat them 6-1. Patrick Kluivert got a hat-trick. There was an own goal and Mark Overmars scored 2. Savo Milosevic scored a late consolation goal, not to even restore dignity because that was long since gone, but just for his own pride. I'd imagine it meant something to him. In the final game then, it ended up being Spain against France. Zidane put France 1-0 up. Mendieta scored a penalty to equalise. Yuri Djorkaeff scored in the 44th minute to put France back ahead, and that was all she wrote. Into the semi-finals, we get France versus Portugal. We get Italy versus the Netherlands. Nuno Gomes puts Portugal 1 up on 19 minutes. Thierry Henry equalises on 51. The game goes to extra time. This is the era of the golden goal. 117 minutes. France get a penalty. Zidane steps up and scores, and it's game over, and France are through. In the other semi-final, we had a very dull 0-0 draw, which went to extra time, and it ended 0-0. We go to penalties. Frank de Boer misses. No, Italy went first. Di Biagio scores, Frank de Boer misses. Pissotto scores, Jaap Stam misses. Now, why both centre-backs were the first 2 penalty takers is anybody's guess. Then Totti scores, so it's now 3-0 to Italy, but the Netherlands retaking 2. Kluivert scores to pull 1 back. Maldini misses and gives the Netherlands a route back into it, but they are relying on scoring their remaining 2 and Italy missing their 5th. But Bosfeld steps up and misses. So 3 of the back 4 took penalties, and if anybody knows why, I'd love to hear it. That sets us up then for the final. And the final was held in Rotterdam. There was 48,100 people in attendance. Anders Frisk of Sweden was our referee. And there's 2 really strong teams here. So, the French team, Fabien Barthez in goal, a back 4 of Thuram, Desailly, Blanc, Lizarazu, the same back 4 and goalkeeper that had won the World Cup. In midfield, you've got Vieira, you've got Deschamps, you've got Yuri Djorkaeff, and you've got Zidane. Now, Henry is kind of playing a floating left-sided role, not necessarily a winger, not a forward, sort of in between with a lot of freedom. Christophe Dugarry is up front. For the Italians, you've got a back 3 with a midfield 4 and a midfield 5 and 2 up front. You've got Toldo in goal, Cannavaro, Nesta, and Juliano as a back three. Posada was right wing back, Maldini is left wing back, Albertini, Di Baggio, and Fiore at the midfield. And up top, it is Totti with Del Vecchio. Del Vecchio scores on 55 to put Italy 1-up. And we saw an absolute masterclass in how to defend from the Italians until the 94th minute when Sylvain Wiltord equalised to send the game to extra time. And as with the semi-final, France win it on a golden goal. David Trezeguet on 103 minutes breaks all the Italian hearts, and France have now won a World Cup and a European Championship back to back. If I'm not mistaken, Francesco Totti was announced as man of the match just before the end of the 90 minutes, before France equalised, when it looked like Italy were going to win. And then Henry was named man of the match afterwards. I don't know who got the official man of the match award, but it was an interesting situation. But France walk out as undeniably the best team on the planet, and it would all come crumbling down 2 years later at the World Cup in Japan and South Korea. There were 85 goals scored in 31 matches. That's 2.74 per game. Patrick Kluivert and Savo Milosevic were the top scorers with 5 each. Nuno Gomes got 4. Henry, Zahovic, and Conceição got 3. Schmeitzer, Shearer, Djorkaeff, Trezeguet, Wiltord, Zidane, Inzaghi, Totti, De Boer, Frank De Boer, Overmars, Zenden, Alfonso, Mendieta, and Suker got 2. And Gore, Emil Mpenza, Poborski, McManaman, Owen, Scholes, Drulovic, Govardarica, and Komlenjevic, Laurent Blanc, Dugarry, Mehmet Scholl, Conte, Del Piero, Del Vecchio, Di Biagio, Fiore, Ronald De Boer, Everson, Costinha, Figo, João Pinto, Chievo, Ganea, Moldovan, Montiano, Pavlin, Echebarria, Benitez, Raul, Larson, Mjalby, and Burak scored 1 goal each. There was 1 own goal scored by Govardarica. That was against the Netherlands for the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia in that 6-1 hammering. The Golden Boot then obviously was shared between Kluivert and Milosevic. Zinedine Zidane was named the player of the tournament, and the squad of the tournament, Barthez and Toldo were the goalkeepers. Blanc, Desailly, Thuram, Cannavaro, Maldini, Nesta, and Frank De Boer were the defenders. Vieira, Zidane, Albertini, Davids, Costa, Figo, and Guardiola were the midfielders. And the forward players were Milosevic, Henry, Totti, Kluivert, Gomes, and Raul. Tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. The match ball was a thing of beauty. The silver stream, an absolute thing of beauty. The mascot was called the Benelucci, a pun on the Benelux countries, obviously. A lion-devil hybrid, with its mane having the colours of both host countries. So it's black, yellow, red in the middle, white and blue. Very, very cool. We don't seem to have as creative minds coming up with this sort of thing anymore. Your official sponsors, in case you wanted to know: Carlsberg Coca-Cola, Fujifilm, Hyundai, JVC, MasterCard, McDonald's, Philips, PlayStation, Pringles, PSI Net, Sportal, Adecco, Adidas, Cisco Systems, Connexion, KLM, Lever Faberge, Nestle, Telford, Total Fina, and Nashuatech. I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah, them. All in all, a tremendous tournament. Genuinely. a really good tournament that went off without many hitches. I think everybody was fairly happy coming away from that tournament. Some of the known referees, for the sake of being complete about it, Kim Milton-Nielsen, refereed in the Champions League for a long time. Graham Pohl was the English contingent. Marcus Merck, Pierluigi Collina, Dick Yole, Hugh Dallas, Scottish referee, was very, very good. Anders Frick, Urs Meyer, Jose Marie Garcia Aranda. Don't reckon. Gunter Benko, I don't know. Don't know the other two either. Yeah, look, great tournament. Absolutely great tournament. And we just don't get them as good anymore. Wasn't as good as 96. It's worth saying. Wasn't as good as 96. Was definitely better than 2004. I would also say it was better than 2008. Quite enjoyed 2012. 2016 was decent. 2020 was okay with too many teams. But yeah, I'd say I don't think there's been a better European Championship since this. But there were better European Championships before this. I would say 96 definitely better. 92 was probably on about a par. 88 is better. 84 is better. 80 is probably about a par. And before that, it's just 4 teams. So it's not really enough, to be honest. The first 5 are only 4 teams, and it just wasn't enough. But since they went to 8, it's been really strong. And unfortunately, they've decided to go to 24. And this one is 24. The last 2 were 24. 16 was pretty good, but no, not really. The last one was okay. But it's too many teams. The next one, obviously, 2028, is in England, Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. And then after that, in 2032, they've decided that Italy and Turkey is absolutely fine as a set of co-hosts. What Greece must think as they sit thrown in the middle between the heel of the Italian boot and the west coast of Turkey, I have no idea. But yeah, this is what we're getting stuck with now, is all this co-hosting nonsense. It's fine when it's like this one here. Belgium and Netherlands side by side. It was fine with Poland and Ukraine, fine with Austria and Switzerland. I'm good with the home nations. I'd much prefer if England weren't involved, because then the other countries would get more of a fair shake in terms of the ability to host games. England have just come in and kind of taken over, despite not actually being invited. But it's fine, because they're all in such close proximity. Now, it's not that far from Italy to Turkey, but it doesn't really make geographical sense. Just doesn't. Anyway, we'll go to break. Back after this. Right, welcome back. We'll just do the news and gossip and we'll be done for today. So Manchester United have made an opening bid for Jared Brandtwaite. That bid is £35 million and has been rejected without any consideration. United have apparently already agreed personal terms to the player. That sounds like a bit of tapping up. Everton want $80 million for their player. And good for them. Good for them. Hold out for what you want. Michael Olise is of interest to Chelsea, Newcastle and Bayern Munich, who've all contacted Crystal Palace to register their interest. He does have a release clause, but it is only for Champions League clubs. So only Bayern would be able to trigger that. Of those 3 clubs, there is also interest from Manchester United, from Liverpool, from Man City, and from, no doubt, a couple of others around Europe as well, unsurprisingly. Michael Olise is a sensational footballer. Mats Hummels is leaving Borussia Dortmund. 13 years and 508 appearances across 2 spells. His final game was the Champions League final against Real Madrid. Nuri Sahin has been appointed the new manager of Borussia Dortmund, replacing Edin Terzic, who left on Thursday after asking for his contract to be terminated. Allegedly, there was a big falling out between him and a couple of players, including Mats Hummels. So I'm assuming Hummels will either go to Saudi Arabia or potentially to the MLS. He's only 35, so could probably play another year or two, but it was definitely time for him to move on from Dortmund. BBC pundits have picked their England team. Rio Ferdinand has gone Pickford in goal, a back 4 of Walker, Stones, Guehi and Trippier. Now, I don't know if this is just because he wrote it down this way, so this is how they're showing it, but he's gone for a midfield with Rice on the right, Bellingham as the 6 and Foden on the left, and then a front 3 of Saka, Kane and Gordon. That's a nonsense, an absolute nonsense of a team. So he says, I would go 3 at the back when we have the ball, with Kyle Walker, Mark Guehi, and Kieran Trippier. So he wants Kieran Trippier playing as a centre-back in the 3 when they have the ball. He thinks Stones and Rice could play as a double pivot, with Bellingham and Foden in front of that, and then it's front 3. He's gone with Rice as the defensive midfielder. He's at least been clever enough to realise that. But his team is shit. Who's this? Gary Lineker. He's gone Pickford. He's gone Walker, Stones, Guehi, Trippier. Same nonsense at the back. Bellingham and Rice in a double pivot, which is just horrendous. Saka, Foden and Gordon behind Kane. It seems like the only player he considered other than that is Cole Palmer. Micah Richards has gone with the same 11 as Rio, except he's picked Cole Palmer on the left wing. Alan Shearer has gone with the same team as Lineker. Chris Sutton has gone the same goalkeeper back 4 as them all. He's gone the Rice-Bellingham double pivot. He's gone Saka and Foden as the wingers with Cole Palmer as the 10, and then Kane. This is absolute madness. Wayne Rooney has gone with the same team as Shearer and Lineker. Joe Hart has gone Walker, Stones, Guehi, Trippier, Trent and Rice as a double pivot, and then Saka, Bellingham as the 10 and Foden on the left with Kane. All of these people are imbeciles. The only correct team is Jordan Pickford in goal. That's because you're stuck with him. There's nobody else. At right back, Trent. At left back, Joe Gomez. Centre backs, Guehi and Stones. Double pivot, Rice and Adam Wharton. Right wing, Foden. Left wing, Gordon. 10, Bellingham. 9, Kane. That's the only acceptable team. Everything else is shit. Right. Gossip. Alan Lazier want to make Virgil van Dijk the highest paid defender in the world. Chelsea winger Noni Madeki is on Newcastle's shortlist as they target a right winger. Manchester United are closely monitoring Matthias de Ligt. Manchester United also have John Clare Todibo as one of their options. Joshua Zirkzee is on United's radar, but they could face competition from Milan and Juve. I think he's pretty much set to go to Milan. Ivan Toney and Jonathan David are on United's list of targets. Brentford will refuse to sell Tony for any less than 60 million. No, they won't. He's at a contract in a year. Liverpool and Manchester United both interested in Lenny Yoro. Note that United are making it known that they're in for all these players when in actuality they don't actually have much money to spend. Tottenham, Aston Villa and West Ham are interested in Tammy Abraham. Villa want 40 million for John Duran. I think it's 50. Others have said 50. Either way, it's far too much. Jose Mourinho wants to sign Pierre-Emile Højbjerg from Tottenham. That sounds like lazy journalism, to be honest, because he managed him when he was there. West Ham and Leicester have met with Matthias Sula's representatives. He can do better than that. West Ham would be a good move. He shouldn't go to a newly promoted team. Arsenal face a setback in their pursuit of Swedish striker Victor Gyökeres, with the Portuguese side's valuation higher than the Gunners will be willing to pay. You know that's a lie because he has a buyout clause that's been well publicised. Roberto De Zerbi is set to agree a 3-year contract with Marseille. Brighton will receive a fee of £5 million. Kevin Danzo is being watched by a number of Premier League clubs and has been backed for move to Manchester United by Rio Ferdinand, which means he will flop horrendously. And finally, Real Madrid will try and sign Alphonso Davies after they wrapped up the signing of Kylian Mbappe. Right, folks, that's me for the week. I will see you all on Monday. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.